what do you view as the largest risk to Tesla right now?
Yeah. So, well, obviously the key man risk is always going to be the biggest one for Elon. If something were to happen to him, that would change. But I would also say to that point, I would imagine in the culture, and you would know better than I, but the culture is built in, it's ingrained in the company, and he's delegated obviously incredibly well, and Tesla has such a deep bench. So they would continue on. But I think from a problem solving and from a pushing as fast as they've pushed, that would definitely slow down because he's just one of one. We've never really seen anybody like him. And so that's obviously the one. But just to add another one that is maybe different, I do think the compact car, there's a risk that if Tesla goes to Tesla and removes too much or misses on the design, that will significantly change their volume projections. So to date, they've given us every reason to believe that they hit home runs each time they swing with their vehicle launches. But this one is a little different because it's a mass market vehicle, but they've also talked about this robotaxi platform. So if they start removing too much, I think about stocks or whatever, and they make it so minimalistic that it doesn't appeal to the masses, or the design, like if they lean toward a cyber design that's a little more controversial than a Model 3, which is maybe more acceptable, that could also change. So to hit the figures that they want to do with this car, it just has to be just right. And it's just going to be tough to appeal to that wide of an audience doing the things that Tesla is doing, heading toward autonomy. And that Tesla might be so focused on autonomy that they're not thinking about the end consumer as much. And I hesitate to critique Tesla too much because they have the data, and who am I, this little guy on the internet that reads some articles, that is now going to say, well, they should be doing XYZ, they should do this. It's great that we have opinions. I think feedback is important, all of that. However, to assume that I have some perspective or data that Tesla doesn't have is completely absurd. So we do have to just defer to trusting their leadership to make the right calls. And if they think removing stocks is the right call, even though it upsets whatever percent of the audience, that there's a reason they're doing it. And they're thinking about this long-term picture that they see that maybe we don't see.
Yeah.
So yeah, to tie this one up, I would just say the next gen platform, if they do something too Tesla-ish and it doesn't appeal to the masses, that would be a risk that they would have to then adapt from. But outside of that, I would say financially, they're in such a good position. They're generating free cash flow every quarter. That's adding to their 20 billion plus that they have in the bank. And so if they were to take their margins below zero, or start spending more from a CapEx perspective for a few years and things really slow down with the economy, they're in such a good position with minimal debt to not have to raise money, to not have to issue debt, to not have to dilute. I don't really see any financial risk for them because they're in such a good spot. So yeah, those would be my two. What about you?
Yeah, key man risk for me for sure is it will always be number one, because regardless of how talented the rest of the team is and how Tesla will be okay. Elon is very much, without Elon, I don't think the bot comes to fruition, as an example. Without Elon, I don't think that whatever ecosystem exists where Tesla has built out 100 teraflops or whatever that hell that figure was of compute power, with a server farm of the most advanced chips they can make and software that you can use for AGI. AGI and figuring out how to best use that thing doesn't come to the fruition nearly as quick as it will with Elon. Maybe at some point, but maybe 100 years later, right? Or maybe 20 years later. So Elon is that. It's sort of that if he's gone for whatever reason, then the bot valuation, I got to yank it out, because I don't have confidence, regardless of how brilliant the team is. It's still this confused looking dude back here, right? So he's got the brain for that. So that's for me, that's number 1, 2, and 3, to be honest. I think the geopolitical sort of concerns that some people bring up, I think, are overblown. I think if there's one thing Tesla has done extremely well, and they've been very wise about, is that they've been very quick to localize their manufacturing as quick as they can in all these regions. And by doing that and having a proved out sort of model that's bringing a lot of jobs and income to the region, it's in that region's best interest to ensure they don't break their relationship with that company, because that company is boosting the economy of that region. And that's
Yeah.
something that I think Elon was very forward thinking on. And I mean, it benefits the business, obviously, because you're localizing the supply chain. But then in China, and that's why he built in Shanghai, so that you can be friends with China, so that they don't come and freaking destroy you, or try to make it very difficult for you to get in later, or maybe they, I don't know, there might be some shenanigans there or whatever else. So that was very
Mm-hmm.
smart. So from that perspective, I think those concerns are overblown. If the economy were to tank, to your point, balance sheet is rock solid, basically no long-term debt, free cash flow while they're growing. They could just say, okay, pause all the build outs. Let's just focus on making the cheapest possible cars, $0 spending capex. Just crank them out, crank them out, crank them out, crank them out. We'll go crazy lean, like even leaner than we are now for 2 to 3 years. We'll go to zero margin, and we'll just make sure the cash balance stays exactly the same every quarter. And that's what we do
Mm-hmm.
every single quarter until hopefully the economy doesn't collapse fullest and the only thing that exists are Tesla cars.
Yeah.
So hopefully
Yeah.
we'll reach
True.
that point. So from that
Yeah.
standpoint, yeah, the stock price is going to get absolutely destroyed for sure, but it will recover. For every collapse we've had in the economy, we've had a giant boom that follows and it takes us to the next level. So that's about as reliable as the sun coming up every night. So at some point it will recover and go past it. It
Yep.
just will be painful. The one point you brought up with the compact car, which I found very interesting, and I think I disagree with you a little bit, is that I think the compact car is not really reliant on what it looks like or what features it has. If you can hit a certain number per month, because most car shoppers and buyers are monthly payment folks. Like in my head, I have it, and I've done some math, and I think Tesla can do this, especially in the US, with the IRA being at point of sale starting next year, and the fact that
Mm-hmm.
this thing is going to be extremely cheap to run on a per mile basis from a electricity standpoint. It shouldn't really need any maintenance whatsoever, because I have a Model Y. Literally the only thing I deal with is tires, really, with that car. And every other Model S or Tesla I've had two Model S in the past too, but that's besides the point.
Mm-hmm.
And then the insurance on a car that's going to have safety features that will basically prevent it from crashing. You layer all these things on top of each other, and the starting price being hopefully 25 to 30,000 with the IRA tax credit on top of it, you can conceivably get to a point where the total all-in cost of owning a Tesla, if everything, electricity, insurance, maintenance, lease or loan, whatever you want to call it, is less than $500 a month. And to me, that's
Mm-hmm.
like the magic number that most people look for, is like, what's the best car I can buy for X number of dollars? And if Tesla's like, yo, you can buy a car that you can leave at home every single day, leave your house every morning with a full tank. Your insurance is super cheap because we give it to you because we know you're not going to crash. The electricity is going to be super cheap because we're going to put you on a monthly plan with us on our virtual power plant. You're going to be able to pay $30 a month, and you can charge as much as you want at night. And by the way, the car is like $250 to $300 a month just for your lease, unlimited miles. I don't see how that doesn't completely destroy the auto market. I just don't see it. And so it could literally look like
Mm-hmm.
dog shit, excuse my French. It could be just a
Yeah.
pile of
Yeah.
poo on wheels. But if it's got a screen inside and it's $500 a month all in, I think that thing takes off like crazy, especially now in an
Yeah.
environment where affordable cars do not exist in the US, especially. That's how I think about the compact
Yeah.
car.
No, I'm glad you said that, and those are really good points. And I'm glad that you made them. So yeah, I think there's nothing there that I would disagree with. I totally agree, and I do. To be clear, I think this compact car is going to blow up the market. It'll be the thing that bolts Tesla to the next level in tandem with autonomy. But yeah, that's just going to break open a whole new market for Tesla, and we know what happens when we get butts and seats, and then, like you said, if the economics make sense, which it sounds like they're going to. And yeah, I wouldn't even argue that even if they designed hypothetically like a Cybertruck like compact that was very divisive and polarizing, it again, if the metrics make sense, how many
Yeah.
people would look past that? That's definitely fair. So
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, it's fascinating to watch. I mean, and then you think about the Cybertruck being launched, and then hopefully this quarter, end of this quarter, probably next quarter, realistically. But then you have that momentum into the compact car. It's like
yeah.
it's very exciting to think about.
I would ask you, how do you think they'll handle the pricing of autonomy, FSD, if and when they start rolling out? Like, because how is that? Okay, let's say they solve autonomy late 2024, 25 when they start rolling out this compact vehicle. It's not still
Yeah.
going to be 15K. So like,
Yeah.
I don't know how that would how they would price it.
So in my head, so we have to set. It's almost like there's three components to this. So there is, I own a Tesla and I want to be able to drive my car, or I want the car to drive me around autonomously, but I have zero intention to put it on a network so other people can ride it. So that's one customer. Then there's another customer that's going to say, I want to be able to add my Tesla to the network and it make me money. So that's another customer. And then the third customer is, I do not want to own a Tesla. I just want to hail a Tesla when I need it. And that's a different customer. So there's like three customers. The first customer, I could be, dude, I could be the wrongest person alive here. So, but this is how I'm thinking about it. If I were like, for some reason, Elon's like, you're in charge of FSD pricing. Because, I used to be a pricing strategist before Tesla at my previous gig. I came up with pricing strategies, but it was pet food. Okay. So like, but it was $1 billion worth of business. So it was, it was important enough, I guess.
Yeah.
I would be like, okay, so for that first tier customer, that's a monthly plan. So you have a Tesla and you can, every month, like right now it's $200 a month. I don't know. We'll find a price. We'll figure out the market dynamics once we have the actual software. We'll test a few things. My head says, I don't know, between $400 and $500 a month you pay. And then the car will just, you have a private chauffeur. And then the chauffeur will drive you around. You 10x safer than a human, probably more. You never have to worry about it. Completely hands off. You could sit in the freaking back seat and do whatever you want, bro. Like just fulfill your wildest dreams. So people are doing some crazy stuff in San Francisco, right? So you can do whatever you want. So that's customer number one. And then customer number two, which is the fleet guy or gal, what I see happening there is that FSD price that we're paying right now, the 15,000, that goes up to a number where the ROI would make sense for a fleet runner to purchase. And so where I'm thinking about it conceptually is okay, if over the span of the lifetime of a vehicle, if you do some math and you say, okay, if I run it for 40,000 miles per year or somewhere around that, which is what your typical Uber driver that actually uses their car to drive is, probably more in a lot of cases, but it's 40,000 per mile per year. And then it's at a dollar per mile that's significantly less than Uber, but it's still quite competitive, which in my head is like $1 per mile, which is where ARC is at. Then you do the math, the 10-year return on that car for a fleet runner is like $400,000. Just very, you have 40,000 miles a year, 10 years, $1 per mile, that's 400,000, right? And so Tesla will take a cut from that, obviously. And so Tesla will have to decide, is it 20%, is it 30%, is it 40%? If it's 20%, then Tesla's making $80,000 on that car over the life of the vehicle. And the fleet runner's taking home 320,000, right? And so they'll price FSD somewhere so that it incentivizes somebody to run a car for 5 years or 10 years. And so maybe 40,000 for the software. And then Tesla on top of that will take a cut. And then the customer number three, which is, you and me that potentially don't own a car, we're like, I want to take my Tesla, I want to take my wife out to dinner and we're going to hail the Tesla. We'll hail the Tesla for $1 per mile. And it will be, I don't know, half the price, probably much lower over time than an Uber or a Lyft. And then we never have to worry about a car ownership. We just hail that Tesla and it takes us places. And the fleet runner gets 80% or 70% of the cut. And then Tesla keeps the rest. That's how I'm thinking about it. Does any of that make sense?
Yeah, of course. No, it makes a lot of sense because my number has always been around 40 or 50,000 for FSD when autonomy is here. And I like how you kind of parse that out. And again, it will always boil down to economics. And again, I just wish we had more of a sense of how they're going to handle that. And what it looks like from the consumer side, what type of optionality they have. And so it'll be cool to watch for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be fascinating to watch for sure.